So how do we keep rituals from becoming stale and meaningless and losing their effectiveness? Here's the key. If you've watched some of our other videos or read our blogs, you know that a core part of our approach to embedding a culture is the concept of practicing what we call rituals. And while rituals are critically important to success, there's a danger lurking here. How do you keep your rituals from gradually becoming stale and meaningless? Ooh, that's a good question. In this video, I'll give you the single most important thing you need to know to avoid that trap. Just so that we're all on the same page here, let me first explain what I mean by a ritual and why rituals are so important. A ritual is some behavior that you do over and over again until it becomes almost automatic. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth. You go to a ball game, we play the national anthem. Some people say a prayer before every meal. When I was a kid in school, we used to say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. These are rituals. They happen almost without thinking. The reason that rituals are so important is that most people aren't very good at sticking with things. We get bored or distracted easily. And before we know it, that diet or exercise program gets forgotten, or the program at work becomes yet another flavor of the month. But when something becomes a ritual, it's easy to keep doing it because it becomes almost second nature. So the way we use this concept in the CultureWise operating system is we take our behaviors, or as we call them, fundamentals, and we focus on one each week through a series of rituals, like starting every meeting with a brief discussion of the fundamental of the week. The rituals give us the chance to have lots and lots of repetition, and that repetition is what's necessary to embed the culture. All right, so back to our original question. So how do we keep those rituals from becoming stale and meaningless and losing their effectiveness? Here's the key. You look for ways to create engagement and interactivity. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say that you're starting every meeting with the fundamental of the week. If I stand in front of the room and I lecture about this week's fundamental, and as the audience you have no role to play, it's likely to start to go in one ear and out the other. But if instead I ask you a question about the fundamental, now your brain is engaged and you're participating, and it's an entirely different experience. The last thing you want to do is to just simply recite the fundamental. That's going to get stale pretty quickly. And by the way, when you ask a question, it's always more effective to ask a specific person a specific question. In other words, if I just ask the group, hey, does anybody have anything you want to say about this week's fundamental? What's going to happen? Nothing. And that doesn't mean they're not interested. People just don't generally volunteer. Instead, if our fundamental of the week is, let's say, honor commitments, I might ask a question like, Joe, what do you do when somebody makes a commitment on your behalf without checking with you first? Or, Sarah, what system do you use to keep track of all the commitments that you make so that nothing falls through the cracks? Now the person's brain is working, and everybody else in the room is also mentally engaged, thinking about maybe how they would answer. When Joe or Sarah respond, others are probably going to jump in with their thoughts, and now we're off and running. We got a great conversation going. Another important way to keep things fresh is to make sure that you vary the voice. If we're talking about a discussion of the fundamental week in a meeting, rotate who's leading the discussion. The more other people get involved, the more interesting and engaging it is for everybody. So the thing to remember is to look for ways that you can create more engagement and interactivity. That's the key to keeping your rituals meaningful. I hope that's helpful for you. Let us know how else we can best support you in your culture work.